Welcome to GovCom Unfiltered, where your journey through the labyrinth of federal contracting begins. I'm Alexa Tsui, your guide and host on this epic adventure. Here, we dive deep into the heart of government contracting, shedding light on the heroic tales of those who navigate its complex terrain. Our mission? To bring you closer to the action, revealing the critical steps, triumphant victories, and occasional pitfalls that our intrepid adventurers face. Your journey into the world of government contracting starts now, and we could not be happier to have you with us. Let's embark on this adventure together. Thank you for joining us on GovCom Unfiltered. Today, our guest is Erica Dobbs, CEO of Dobbs Defense, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Erica, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, good afternoon or good morning. My name is Erica Dobbs. I'm the CEO of Dobbs Defense Solutions, and I have been in business now for 6 years. My background is prior Navy. I did 36 and a half years in the military, and so I'm just excited to be here with you today.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that. You've been such a star in the industry, and I'm just so excited to learn more about your background, where you're going, what's happening. So let's jump into it.
Sure.
What's a pivotal moment from your early career that shaped who you are today? Maybe something that's not on your official bio, not on your LinkedIn profile, something that maybe people don't really know about you.
Sure. So, funny enough, I'll take you back to my early military days when I was in Navy boot camp. And I was selected to be the leader. It's called a section leader. And so during this time, I was 19 years old. And I was asked to lead a group of women. It was like 7 to 8 women, but I was the youngest kid that was asked to be the leader of all these other people. And so what actually shaped what I am today is that it was during that time that those individuals that was in charge of us, they saw the leader in me that I didn't see in myself. And so those individuals forced me into pulling out the instinct that I had of something, that simple word we all look at called leadership. And I actually had to lead the section of women who were much older than I was. So I learned in that environment that it's not about how old you are, how smart you are. The question is, can you lead? And so that's what I learned. That's not in my bio today.
That's a great answer to that question. So when it comes to leadership, Erica, what would you say your leadership style is today?
I would say that it fluctuates really depending on the situation, because I can operate in any gamut of being a leader, but I am a very compassionate leader, but I lead by example.
Lead by example. That's one of the best ways to lead, I think. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this. When it comes to, your experience in the military and kind of where you're going now in the future and what you're building this small business, what are some of those lessons that you really have taken from your time in the DoD and you apply daily to your work at Dobbs Defense?
So one of the unconditional strategies that I've learned and brought to Dobbs Defense Solutions from my military days is wargaming. And so I am a strategist. I do have high level strategic thinking. That's just the way I was trained. And so it has helped me to shape the business into what it is today and to be as successful as we are, because I don't just jump into something without really doing all of the strategy, looking at whether or not it's a good fit for us. And, a lot of times as a small business, you're just happy that someone called you. But for me, I actually do the wargaming on it. I call it my own personal wargaming, but really it's just doing strategic thinking, mapping, and seeing if it's a good fit for not just our team, but for the other team as well. And so I believe in bringing value to our partners. And so if you're going to bring value to the partners, from my perspective, you need to make sure that, the relationship is solid on both sides. And so that's what my wargaming entails.
Interesting. What a great answer. Let me ask you this question. When it comes to your step reviews, how do you apply that strategy from a black hat review, before you submit a proposal? I feel like the strategic thinking element of capture is often missing, especially with small businesses. So how do you make sure that your company kind of implements the strategic thinking on the growth side as well?
So I actually align them both together, to be honest with you. So what I've learned is that not all relationships are good relationships, right? And not all opportunities are good for us. And so with that being said, I don't per se go through the full gate review,
Right.
like gate 0, 1, 2, 3. I just really, it's really a gut thing, right? And so I just use my instinct to look at the situation, but more importantly, the dynamics of the relationship. Like, are we gelling well with the team? Is there synergy there? Before anything else, I want to make sure that not only are we able to bring value from our, past performance, but do we merge well with that team? Like, is the team dynamics there? So that's really the most critical piece for me is when I'm doing my strategy is that, do they value us as a partner? Are we a value add to the team? And then more
Hmm.
importantly, do we feel the same way about them? And if it's a relationship where it's one sided, then it's not a good fit for us.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. What about when you're deciding whether you like a go, no go bid factoring, right? Do you put
That's
a
the
lot of
same thing.
strategic same thing? You're just like trying to like run through the different scenarios and make sure that it aligns to a smart growth pattern for the company and where you want to go in the future?
Yeah. And more importantly, when we do our strategy for that, we look at the opportunity to decide, is this in alignment with our core competencies? Because it's critical for us to stay within those core competencies. And we have partners that bring opportunities to us that are not within our core competencies. And we will look at it and say, do we really want to go down this path? Will it cheapen our service offerings? Will it get us off, the what we have projected for Dobbs in the future? And so with that, we use that mapping to decide go, no go. And if it's too far outside of our core competencies, it's a definitely no go.
Right. I feel like there when I was working like leading BD and capture for small businesses, we used to get calls all the time like, "Can you just prime this and make it a pass through?" And then it would be something completely out of the blue, like, underwater basket weaving in like Indonesia or something. And I'm like, what?
Mm.
So having a really aligned business with your capabilities and know what it is, not only who you are today, but who you wanna be and make sure that every opportunity aligns to that is some of that strategic thinking and mapping that you probably had to do before you even got too far into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had an opportunity where what brought me to this place was trial and error. So I had an
Okay.
opportunity where I had the capabilities to do the work, but I was partnering with someone and the partner, I said, hey, it's not really our sweet spot, but we would like to use you guys to do the work. And so I brought this team on board, but the team, the partner that I brought on board had decided that they should get all of the money, like the whole contract. I'm like, but it is my contract. I should get something from it. And so they actually was using a bully technique, so they wanted to bully us. And so they were like, either you give us this amount of money or we're out. And I said, well, thank you for your support. And they were out. And
Yeah.
so what I learned was from that situation was don't venture down a path where you don't have the capabilities to actually complete the task. Because had I have been solely dependent on them to do everything and not understand how to do the work, I would have been screwing my company because it would have messed up our credibility and we wouldn't have been able to succeed and provide that level of service because we lack the technical expertise. And so that's why we stay within our lane and don't venture out too
Mhm.
far. Because we wanna be
That's
successful, we're a small business.
right.
We wanna keep our street cred solid.
Right, right. So when it comes to Dobbs Defense, tell me what those swim lanes are, just for the folks that are listening.
So the swim lanes is cybersecurity, enterprise
Mhm.
IT, and business intelligence. We do training as well. We do system engineering. We do test and evaluation. A lot of the boutique niche cybersecurity that we support. We do risk management framework. S- defensive cyber operations. We support that as well. So we've done a gamut of work. We've done machine learning, AI. We do
Right,
cloud
right.
support. So DevSecOps. Yeah, I could just continue to list, some of the things right
Right.
now. I'm excited because we're supporting the Navy submarine community. So I'm
Cool.
excited to be back in my service. We're supporting Navy on some other opportunities as well. But we also support our Army. So we do traditional enterprise IT, like I told you before.
Awesome.
So we support audiovisual video teleconferencing as well. And so anything dealing with fiber optic cabling, we do that as well. So those are some of the swim lanes that we stay in. If you hear the trend, we're staying within our lanes of enterprise IT, business
Got it.
intelligence, and cybersecurity. You didn't hear me say
Right,
anything
right.
that doesn't align.
Right, right, right. Yeah, no,
And
that
we do digitization as well. We do digitization of records. We do records management, knowledge management, SharePoint. Those are our soft skills and project management. But aside from that, yeah, I'm not going down that route.
Right, right. Well, I feel like those swim lanes are pretty wide open for a lot of girls. I feel like you've aligned them and built them quite beautifully. I was just gonna tell you that one of the future guests on the show is gonna be a submarine captain, and I'm really excited to interview her. So that'll
Oh,
be
that's
really
exciting.
I know. I can't wait for that conversation. So, let's jump into the next question. I feel like you have so much great knowledge and wisdom to share. So, when you think about your network, what has been really the most effective approach for not just building connections, but turning them into meaningful, beneficial relationships? I mean, I think I've run into you at multiple events in this industry. You could never buy a drink or buy food ever. You could just be out networking all day, every day. So, how do you make sure that you pick the right events? They're good for you. They're good for the company, and you turn whoever you meet into like that next level relationship.
Sure. So selecting the event, as a team, not just me by myself, we do it as a team. So our team, we will look at the opportunity or the conference or event that we're going to, and we'll decide who goes. We'll say, well, Erica, we think that's a good fit for you, or the rest of my team members, one of them will go, and we'll look at the clientele that's there. Who is in that environment that could be a potential partner for us, and so that's how we decide if we should go there, or if we're meeting a client. Someone say, "Hey, Erica, can you join us at this event? We'd like to have a meeting with you." Then, of course, we'll go to it. I will tell you that one of the key approaches that I use is that, and I tell this to all my partners before I get on a call. I say, "Hey, I'm trainable. I haven't arrived at a plateau where I can't be trained." And so I think it's very effective and beneficial for you when you actually can show your vulnerabilities and people can see that, you're human just like they are, and that you can be trained or learn from them. So I will tell you, I've only been in business for 6 years. There's a lot more that I can learn from other people that's been around much longer than I. And when I go into my relationships, I want them to know that, hey, I am a partner. I'm in the trenches with you. And if we need to do a course correction, I'm willing to do that. I'm not so stringent that I'm not willing to adjust or make any course corrections.
I love when you said, vulnerability is a superpower. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and she kind of brought that whole concept and thinking into modern day times. But you don't see it very often, especially and in the C-suite, right? It's like, oh, you're supposed to know everything, you have arrived, but just like that very human experience of everybody's having a human experience, first of all. And then like how do you learn, build, and grow into a more functional human being is, I think, always receptive. I always tell myself before I step out in front of a big crowd, like, just human, talking to other humans. No need to panic. Panic, panic, panic.
Yeah. I think my military days prepare me for talking to crowds because I used to be a briefer. I was always in the rooms with senior leadership. And of course, most people don't even know this about me, but I was an executive aide, for the flag officer. So I
Oh,
had to make sure that all of his meetings and communications was intact. And then I would critique, like, that's where my strategic thinking come in at, because I would always
oh
critique
yeah.
his briefs. And then we would go back and have a brainstorming session on which way he should have address the audience, which way would have been better. So all of that, like, just really making sure that we perfect his speech for the next time around with the team or with another audience that we were actually going to be briefing. And so I brought that into Dobbs because I think it's important
Right,
to know that you can make adjustments to your whole persona, right?
right.
And so, and then as a C-suite leader, that it's important to learn from others around you that has, perfected a process. Like I'm a key believer in learn from other people's mistakes. I don't have to make that same mistake. I'm okay with learning from someone else that have had a pitfall and they can share some different advice about how to actually deviate yourself from going through it. So, I mean, and the C-suite is lonely, but it's not that lonely where you can't reach out to other people and get support.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Especially in today's day and age, I always love the concept of reverse mentoring as well, right? You probably have younger Gen Z people that you work with, and they're not only do they bring a level of energy, I find, in my own C suite that I work in, it's always great to have that different perspective internally.
Oh yes, my teammates do not they do not hold back on saying they give me a lot of unsolicited criticism. 100%.
You know what? I love getting that unsolicited criticism because it's like it reminds me of that movie called Wine Country. Like, can I give you some feedback? Yes, please do. Let's
Yeah.
go. Right.
Yeah. But it's also rewarding as well when those Gen X's say to you, "You represented our company well today, ma'am. I like that." And so, to me, that's more refreshing to be able to know that you hit the mark and that the Gen X's can say, "You did a good job."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I would love to know, if you could go back and really give yourself some advice when you were just starting out. And I know you've only been in business for 6 years, but those are like dog years. So like 60 years in GovCon, right? What would you say about, balancing collaboration and competition in this space? Because this is a frenemies kind of industry.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about this subject, to me, it's like about being strategic out of the gate. One thing that I would give one key piece of advice that I would give myself is don't trust everybody. Yeah.
Really?
So,
Tell me
yeah,
more. Tell me
yeah.
more. Tell me more.
Don't talk too much.
Ah,
Don't overshare, because when you're coming out of the gate, you're just so excited about the new shiny object that when you're doing collaboration and you're doing the competition and you're doing the capture, you will overshare. I've done that on a couple of times where I overshared and was cut out of the deal. They took my information, they took my
wow.
relationships
Yep.
and left me behind. And so that was the best advice that I can give myself. I still give myself that advice when I'm on a call, like, wait, don't overshare. Don't tell too much. You want to make sure that you can still be a part of this opportunity. Because sadly, we have people out there that are still, they still prey on young CEOs, and some of them still prey on
Right.
mature CEOs. It doesn't matter what level you're at, but they're not good people. And so I've learned that not everybody is a good partner. Like I told you in the beginning, how we do our strategic decisions and we map it out and figure out if the people are good for us. And that's what helped me to realize who is really in our corner, who is really there for us. Because if you have partners that you trust, but also trust you, you can overshare. Whether you have an
Mhm.
NDA or a teaming agreement in place, you can
Yep.
still overshare and it's still a relationship. And so for me, I think it's important to look back and think about there are some people that I just couldn't do that with. And to this day, I mean, have I forgiven them? Of course I have. Do I hold any grudges? Of course not. Because guess what? It's called business.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure, but, there's a lot of new tools popping out these days. I mean, I build software and growth tools for a living, so we have to constantly assess the competition and see what's out there, and right now, the hottest thing is like, "Okay, well, let's use AI for teaming, for partnering, for finding partners." But what I always try to tell people is this is a relationship-based business. You can find
100%.
a list of partners almost anywhere. Pay attention, do your own work, like, all that stuff, but really if like, how do you reach out to them? What are you gonna say? And what is your role gonna be in really making sure that you put your best foot forward in building that relationship? And it always has to be a long-term thing. It can't just be, "Oh, hey, I have this great opportunity. Let's talk about this one-off thing," right? That's another thing I realized when I was leading, big captures is like, you wanna work with the people you worked with before, that you know you can trust and that you like, but then also sometimes you have to go outside of who you already know, but it's not gonna be AI doing that for you.
No, you don't want to use AI for that because it could just be an anomaly, right?
Right.
Yeah, because AI doesn't capture the personality, and it doesn't capture the credibility or, you know, people will project one way, but until you've actually been in a relationship with a person, you don't really know them, and you wanna know your partners. Because to me, I view it like this. I want partners that, when I reflect on my military days, like I served in the Navy. I want to make sure that I'm in a relationship with a partner that I'm willing to go to war with. And that's what I say about wargaming. So when I'm in a relationship with a partner, I'm like, okay, I will fight with them. I will have their six. I will make sure that anything that goes down, that I have their six 100%. And so when you're looking at working as a partner with another company, you have to trust their values. You have to understand their mission. Where are they going? Like, I want to know all that about them. as a whole. And then as a small business, when you're working with larger partners, I look at the leadership team, I look at the C-suite, and then I look at the dynamics of the team members that we're working with. And, I'll be honest with you, I've learned a lot over the years. And what I've learned is that you can't be mad with one company based upon the relationship with one sector of that organization,
Oh, that's
because
so true.
the whole company is not corrupt. The whole company is not off tilted. It's just that segment of people that you're working with. So you have to remember that it's all about relationships. It's all about
Right.
individuals. And you can't, like in the military, you have people from all walks of life. Some of them were good people, some of them weren't. Some of them you could work with, you were forced to work with them, whether you liked it or not. And so I've learned to operate in any environment, but as a CEO, I have a choice.
Right. Yeah, that's the best part about being the boss is you get to
Yeah.
decide what
Yes.
you do and where you do it and when you do it and who you
Yes,
do it with.
and who you do it with, 100%, and who you do it with. So that's the most important piece of being, in the CEO role and the C-suite, is that, you can determine whether or not you wanna work with people, and you can tell sometimes by people's demeanor whether or not they're gonna be a bad partner or not. Like, I will be as kind to them as I possibly can. I will stroke egos. Sometimes, you have to stroke the ego because some people need that. They need to be some people need to be coddled. Some people need to be,
Right.
you know, affirmed. I would say some people need to be affirmed to a certain level. But, for me, I think it's important to put all that stuff aside when you're really doing partnership, right? I think that we should all come to the table knowing that, okay, I have an ego, you have an ego. I like to be affirmed, you like to be affirmed. Can we get
Mm,
past all that and just focus on winning and winning,
right.
right?
Right. So I have another question popped into my head that was outside of our list that we went over. And it
Sure.
is, looking at your background and looking where the role you're in today, right? You are in a very male dominated field right now. And your entire Navy career, you kind of were doing the same. So,
Yeah.
what kind of lessons have you learned from being like one of the only women in the field that you're in?
Wow, okay. That's a question that you throw me off on. So, but I'm
I
okay
know.
with it.
Sorry.
I can answer it. I can answer it because it's the story of my life. So I will tell you that I love being the only in the room. In the beginning, it used to really intimidate me. But now being a female in my environment, being the only, like they say, being the only girl, or just in general, I will tell you that it makes me very proud to be able to represent women. It's a joy to be able to say that I'm not a DEI person in the room, that I am here because of my merit, right?
Right.
And so I just think it's credible to be that way, because a lot of people view being the only one in the room as a negative, but I view it as a positive because it shows that you have the aptitude to bring value. And so I love it. I don't have anything negative about it to say, because it has conditioned me to understand the value of I'm at the table because I belong.
Right. I love that. No, yeah, absolutely. I think I like to weightlift, and when I step on the weight floor and, I'm wearing like a hoodie and you unzip it and then you pick up the 30s and you start putting in work, you feel like you are representing the entire like gender on the weight floor, right? All right. Well, thinking ahead to the future, what are some of the areas that you and the company want to move towards as, we run headlong into whatever the rest of this year brings and the next?
Sure. For me, a lot of people believe that I'm a cyber girl. Well, I am degreed in cyber, but my background is really radio frequency. So, as a CEO of the company, I want to take Dobbs into another sphere, as we can say, of influence, and capitalize off of my expertise in the satellite communication side of the house. I used to be what they call the surface communication officer. And so my job was managing high level satellite communications in the Navy. And so for Dobbs, I'm looking forward to tapping into this space world, because that's the part of the world that I love to be in. It's really rewarding to be able to look at the spectrum, the satellite
Oh, yeah.
spectrum, and support operations, you know, in that area. And so for me, I've always supported operations in very critical areas. And so as a company, is my goal and my objective is to actually take us to that level over the next few years. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I imagine so. Well, having done a little bit of RFID kind of work and things along those lines and satellites and all that stuff, can tell you there's not a lot of small businesses in that space. There's a lot of, sectors of the bigs and, all the usual Beltway bandit companies. I really feel like there's a tremendous opportunity for you with Dobbs because you guys are service disabled, veteran owned, women owned, 8A. I mean, the list goes on. So I bet, just an incredible opportunity to get in there and dominate, and I really do hope that happens for you guys.
Yeah, thank you so kindly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Erica, thank you so much for being here with us today on GovCom Unfiltered. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining us today to the audience, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you so kindly for affording me the opportunity to chat with you, and I look forward to the opportunity again if it presents itself.
Thank you, Erica.